In the race for the U.S. Senate, Daniel McCarthy, 34 years old. He is an accomplished businessman, and he is running against Senator Martha McSally in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. Good to see you. Thank you for coming on. Let's start with why you choose to challenge the pick of President Trump, the pick of Mitch McConnell, and she is the incumbent. Why choose this fight?
It really wasn't a difficult decision based on the fact that she has demonstrated an inability to win. So as Arizona citizens reached out to me, when I mean reach out to me, we had hundreds of people. It tapped out about 1,000 people plus that encouraged me to run this race before I decided to get in. The challenge in D.C. is there's a culture of a bureaucratic state, whatever you want to call it, where if we continue to allow D.C. to pick our senators here in Arizona, we're going to have more of the same.
You think D.C. picked her, not Doug Ducey, who appointed her about a year ago?
I would speculate that there was definitely some conversations between the governor and
recruiting a...
Sure. But again, it's just speculation. The moral of the story is that we can't afford to lose another Senate seat.
Daniel, what is it about Martha McSally's positions that rankle you, you don't like, and you want to change?
Martha has demonstrated in the House, and her voting record speaks for itself. There were circumstances in which, for example, with the IRS accountability, HR Resolution 828, there was a circumstance where there should have been some accountability when they weaponized the IRS. She was a no vote on holding those individuals accountable. This is someone that was an anti-Trump person after the primary. So when the primary was over and Hillary and Trump were head-to-head, Martha was not willing to say who she was going to vote for.
How do you square that with her allegiance to him as a senator? And she's cozied up to him quite a bit. Some Republicans would say not enough, but most people would say she's joined at the hip with Donald Trump, and he's endorsed her.
When it's politically expedient, this is what politicians do. They go where the political winds blow. Our country right now, we're in a position where we can no longer afford politicians to run our country. We need outsiders to come in that are willing to make sacrifices to get to Washington, D.C. quickly and start to create disruption, positive disruption.
Are there specific positions that you differ with her on? Because that's helpful to the voter to kind of know, okay, where is he coming from, where's she coming from?
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. Most recently, she's a co-sponsor on a REACT bill where they want to start documenting what your children are doing in public schools, everything that they do on the computer screen. This is an example of expanding the federal government. On the Second Amendment, this is someone that is not willing to come out there and really hold the line on infringing on our Second Amendment. And this is a problem that's happening with other Republicans as well in the leadership, where they're starting to compromise on our Second Amendment rights. We're not willing to compromise on the Second Amendment.
So on the spectrum, you're to the right of Martha McSally. Would that be fair?
No, I don't think I'd say I'm to the right. I'd say I'm a constitutionalist. I want the original intent of our Constitution to be at least attempted. D.C. is not even willing to allow the federal government to get out of anything. I mean, they're expanding the federal government daily. With our spending, this is the Bill of Rights we're talking about here. We're talking about the Second Amendment, John. Now think about this. Never before in Arizona would I have imagined that we would have a fight on our hands with making sure that the government doesn't infringe on the Second Amendment.
You're genuinely worried that somebody might try to confiscate your guns?
I'm not genuinely worried that someone's going to necessarily today start confiscating my guns. I'm genuinely concerned that every time that we give the government something, it opens doors where it turns into a slippery slope. I'm worried about my son 10 years down the road. I'm worried about the fact that some young man in school or some young woman in school says something on their computer screen and it's documented and kept on some permanent file somewhere.
Let's back up a little bit because I want to allow people to get to know you.
Sure.
You're a father of 4?
Yes.
You made your mark in sales, real estate, and the cosmetic company. You and your wife invented the makeup eraser.
Yeah.
That was really the product that kind of, I guess, enriched you, right?
To some extent. We've had success in business, mostly entrepreneurial, where we've either been involved with the startup phases of the business or obviously we've owned majority or minority stakes in the company. So Lexi and I have been very blessed by this country. We love this country. We love the free market systems. We understand how important the free market systems are. And we understand the intrusion of the federal government and how it affects small business owners. So those that are out there that own small businesses or are independently contracted, we know what they're going through.
How does that qualify you to be a U.S. Senator? Do you think the business background is kind of the cornerstone?
I do, yeah. I think it's a unique ability that someone brings to the table when they're accustomed to dealing with thousands of things at one time, prioritizing what's important, going after that, and accomplishing it and getting it done. I think that's what we're seeing with our president right now. We're getting a taste of what that business community can bring. I didn't come from wealth, so I didn't come from a background of...
You came from New York, right?
Well, I did. I came from New York in a very humble, rural community. So we had to work very hard to get to where we are. We know what hard work is. We know how to roll up our sleeves and get the job done. And right now, the job is simple. And if I could just make sure your audience understands this. The federal government is growing out of control. They are starting to get their tentacles everywhere, into everything. Arizona is a great example where the majority of our land is controlled by the government. It's time now that we turn over that land to the private ownership. It's time that we allow the private ownership to fix the problems of a lot of the circumstances we're dealing with, specifically with healthcare. Everyone knows that we can come up with free market solutions and drive the prices of healthcare down just by competition. The Republican Party has a platform that works, but really the Constitution, the way that we were given this country, if we can just dial back the federal government, you're going to see wealth creation like you've never seen before.
So this sounds like Ronald Reagan. I mean, that was a tenet of Reagan. Government is the problem. It's not the solution.
I think the faster we go back to that, the faster we are going to see a wealth creation.
How do you do that as one guy in the Senate, even though you're one of 100?
One senator can do a lot of remarkable things. First and foremost, just by propelling me, this is a David and Goliath story. So you're taking a young outsider. If you propel me...
You're 34.
That's right. Yeah. So we have an opportunity as a state to propel me into a situation where, A, just by beating the Democrat and the Democratic Party, who's investing heavily here in Arizona, what we're doing, John, is we're saying we're not comfortable with the federal government working on and compromising on the Second Amendment. Just by putting me to Washington, D.C., it's going to say a lot of things. And then when I'm there, what you're going to find is I'm not there for the pay, I'm not there for the pension, and I'm certainly not there for insider trading tips. So you're going to have someone that's going to be sitting there on the Senate floor or standing there for a long time to stop this madness from happening.
Let me ask you about it. This has been a remarkable week. The impeachment vote this week, I want to get your take on it because as a senator, you might be sitting in judgment of the president. This is Nancy Pelosi announcing one of the articles that had passed. What did you make of this entire episode?
It looks to me like a lot of theater. It looks to me like a lot of it is a circus. It's a game. These guys know they can't control Donald Trump, so what they did is they weaponized the legal process that our Constitution allows for, and they've weaponized the government. This is exactly what the left and the compromising right have allowed to happen. They are literally weaponizing every part of our government against us.
Daniel, was there anything in that phone call with the Ukrainian leader that troubled you?
No. As a matter of fact, what I can tell you is that I expect him to uncover what's been going on in our government. I want to know the corruption in our government. The fact that he was willing to practically fall on the sword to do that, he knows what he's doing. You know, the reality is that we've all known both parties have been corrupt for a long time. Everybody's been standing there, you know, in the same conversations. We've all had them. They're corrupt. And for him to spotlight that, I think, again, it's kind of what I'm hoping our president does.
Let's talk about border issues for a minute. Is it true that you told a radio host that we should annex Mexico?
No.
That's been reported. You're aware of that?
Yeah. Well, unlike you, these are the interviews I'm waiting for. You know, so you get, you hear some remarks, you find out things about yourself.
You did not say this.
No, what I said was I pointed to a specific part in the Constitution where it says that if a country would like to become a state, there's a process for them to do that. Now, what I was doing by that, John, is I was showcasing how I would negotiate on your behalf as a senator. Rather than having people come here illegally, and by the way, you know what's going on. It's dangerous. This is a humanitarian crisis on the border, okay? So rather than people coming here illegally, stay at home, adopt American policies there, be a leader in your community, rise up in your community there. That's what our Constitution
And will annex you or no?
No, no, I don't think there's going to be any annexation. I really don't think.
Well, no, people offhandedly will say that if so many people want to come here, we'll take you on. We'll annex you. I mean, that has been said before in jest, of course.
Of course. Yeah, and I never said annexation. That's the other thing that's funny about the situation. All I was pointing to is a specific part in our Constitution.
You were illustrating a point.
That's right. Yes.
If a vote for you is a vote for what?
A vote for me is a vote for individual rights, individual freedom, less government, limited government.
Do you think you can actually win?
I know I'm going to win. I don't think I'm going to win. What we know is based on the support on the ground. We have grassroots support like I've never seen. And I've been watching politics for a long time. I have never witnessed anything like this. But by the way,
will she debate you, do you believe?
She's going to have to debate me. She has until January 31st to comply with the debate schedule.
We've got 1 minute. You are largely self-funded?
Temporarily, hopefully.
So have you really gotten in the donor game trying to get donors, or are you repelled by that idea?
I'm repelled by it. Yeah, I'm not going to Washington, D.C. looking for PAC money. I'm focused on small donors. I'm looking to create a large network of small donors, which we've started. We have hundreds of donors at this point. And let me give you a statistic on that quickly. Our average donation size right now is $112 per donor.
How much of that have you gotten?
Typically, average donor sizes are $20 to $30. So
30 seconds left. What would you say to Martha McSally right now?
Stop hiding. You have questions to answer. The base of this country, the conservative movement of the Republican Party has a lot of unanswered questions. It's not fair and it's not appropriate to run and hide. You have to comply with the debate schedule. You have to stand up for what you believe in.
Daniel McCarthy, appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you for having me very much,
Great
John.
to see you.
Yes,
and we're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday. Thank you.